Hello there. Hi, this is just a short video on tools, magical tools. I was talking to someone recently about this who was looking to buy a shamanic drum, and it kind of made me think about this whole topic. So this stuff applies to Druidism. It also applies to any magical path, whether you're sort of like a Christian magician or a Buddhist or um, a Wiccan or whatever magical path it happens to be. At the end of the day, what's really important is not so much the tools, but the person using the tools. So, I mean, there's a lot of focus put on things like, the clothes that you wear, having, fancy jewelry, having a big, massive staff or a big fancy wand with a big crystal on the end of it, and, a really fancy, expensive drum, or one that's been handcrafted by, some obscure person who lives at the top of a mountain, all that kind of stuff. Having a house full of religious icons or, sort of models of gods and goddesses. Unfortunately, in most cases, all this stuff is made in China, mass produced. I'd be inclined to say that if you're going to have tools at all, it's best to have them handmade. It's best to have stuff you've either made yourself or has been made for you, or stuff that you've found objects. As with all things, with tools you use in everyday life for building or whatever, fixing stuff, you become familiar. You put your own imprint on them. They become yours. So, your own hammer, you could use any hammer, but the hammer that you use all the time, you're familiar with its exact weight and shape and any peculiarities of it. And the same is true with magical tools. If you make them your own, you imbue them with your own energy. But at the end of the day, the tools aren't really that important, it's the person. A knife in the hands of a butcher is, a useful tool which, used to cut up meat with great skill in many cases. You take that same knife and you put it in the hands of a psychopath, it's a murderous weapon. So at the end of the day, tools are just a focus of the mind, a focus of the energy. You have your intention and you use the tool to achieve what you want to achieve. You could bang a nail into a wall using a rock, or even if you really had to, you could use your fist, or you'd end up hurting your fist enormously, but you might achieve it in the end. So the hammer, which I've already mentioned, that makes that whole job a lot easier. It's designed for the purpose of hammering nails into walls and other similar tasks. So, the point is the tool itself is just a form of focus. What is really important is yourself and how you use it, how you focus your energy, the energy you put into what you're doing. So in reality, these things don't actually matter that much. You don't need to have a ginormous wand. You don't need to have an expensive one. You're going to have just a piece of wood. If you know how to use it correctly, that's just as good as some very fancy stuff made by some craftsman. But the same with the drum. You can buy a cheap frame drum or bowrum and make it your own. It doesn't have to be handcrafted by, somebody obscure and very expensive. With all these tools, all of it's the same principle applies. And people are so often misled and distracted by by all this, by the paraphernalia of magic, having, you know, all these images, pictures up on the wall, all these different gods and goddesses in their house, blah blah blah, loads of cloaks, loads of fancy garments, lots of jewelry. You know, that's not what magic is about. You know, it's inside you, and no amount of fancy gear is going to bring it out of you if you don't have it. If you, you know, to learn magic, to learn Druidism, to learn any of these skills, you need that small kernel, that tiny little seed of ability, of the magical ability. If you don't have that, you could spend 20 years and you still won't get it. If you have that little tiny seed, you can grow it, you can develop it, you can turn it into something, and you can develop your skills and abilities over time. But unfortunately, not everyone has it. So there are people who want to be that, who dream of being Gandalf or whatever, and they can't cut it. They just don't have it. It's not in them. They don't have any ability, and no amount of fancy gear and cloaks and, you know, silly hats, big tools is going to make any difference whatsoever. If you don't have it, you don't have it. And if you do, you eventually learn that you don't need any of this stuff. That the tools are helpful, but as you get better at things, you realize actually a finger is just as good as any kind of staff or wand, and ultimately just the mind. You don't even need the finger. You just direct your thoughts, and they will do the work. You know, it's all about the power of the will. You know, there are people in life who can just make stuff happen, and there are people who, you know, try as they may, they're disorganized, they can't seem to get it together, they can't make anything happen. And, you know, that's the big difference, I'm afraid, when it comes to magical ability. If you don't have the power to focus your energy, to focus your mind, your thoughts, to control what you're doing, you're not going to be any good at doing any of this stuff. So I would say the most important thing is, before you think about buying all this crap, is to try to master your own self. Begin that process. Tools can be useful, they can be helpful. Yes, indeed, they can be helpful, but they are very much sort of a distraction if you let them be. It can be a cul-de-sac you go down that's actually ultimately not helpful. So yes, tools can be a benefit, but they are not the most important thing. In fact, they are probably the least important thing of all in any magical path. So anyway, that's all I have to say on that matter. And if you have any comments, please feel free to leave one below. And if you like what I have to say, hit the like button, please. And I'd be delighted if any of you viewers want to subscribe, and then you'll get to see all my future videos as they come up. Okay, thanks for watching. That's all for now. Bye-bye.